And now to examine how all this fits into the national picture, Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report and Public Radio's Politics with Amy Walter joins us on this primary day. Where would we be without Amy Walter on a primary voting day? Although, as we've been saying, Amy, this is one like no other. Are we going to have, given these problems with turnout, confusion, are we going to have clarity after today?
Well, these are the twin issues, right? We have confusion and clarity at the same time. In some ways, we may have some clarity if everything that we heard from the reporting on the ground suggests that Joe Biden will be able to come up with wins in all of these states that look similar to what we've seen in the polling. We're getting some demographic breakdowns back from places like Illinois and Florida, and it does look as if older voters making up about 60, and older voters, again, meaning 45 and over, making up about 60% of the electorate. That's been pretty consistent. So if there's a surge of young voters coming out to keep Bernie Sanders' political hopes alive, they just haven't come there. We're also seeing that the electorate in Florida, not as big in terms of the Latino vote, not as significant as we had seen in 2016. So those two factors suggest that the clarity piece will be that Bernie Sanders, if indeed he does not perform well, will be further behind in the delegate count, almost impossible for him to catch up, or even more difficult for him to get the nomination. So the confusing part, though, is what happens to all these states that are delaying their vote.
Right.
Some of them into late June. Remember, the DNC convention is supposed to be the second week of July.
And as we just heard in Ohio, back and forth over whether it's June or whether it's April. But you're exactly right. What's going to happen to the conventions, and which is a lot of people asking. But I do want to ask you about those voter surveys,
Yeah.
Amy. You have been looking at that, the breakdown according to gender, age, and race, and so forth. And what else are you seeing? You mentioned age, and I know you've also got some information on how Americans are viewing the president's handling of the coronavirus.
That's right. I mean, we can,
crisis.
as I said, and I think we heard from our reporters on the ground, that even in a state like Illinois, where most of the voting is in person, that did not deter older voters, especially those over 60 years old, from turning out. So you can see there, it's about 26%, 65 plus, those under 30, about 16% of the electorate. Looking at the coronavirus impact more broadly, this issue of do you trust the president versus other sources of information that you trust. We talked about this a little bit last night about we're sort of siloing ourselves once again, the polarization about do you trust the president, do you not trust the president. 60% say they do not trust the president, 37% yes, not surprisingly. That breaks down among party lines as well. 75% of Republicans do trust the president, only 8% of Democrats do. The thing that I think is somewhat hopeful, though, when you see the next slide, which is what do you think about state and local governments? Your state and local governments, do you trust them? And here you have 72% saying yes when it comes to what the mayor or the governor of my state is doing. I trust the information that I'm getting from those folks. And we've seen a lot of that on the ground, right? We're not hearing from communities where there's been only certain precincts agreeing and other precincts not, based on their political point of view. So that, to me, is the good piece of all of this, that even as polarized as we are and distrustful of many times of the other party that we are not a member of, when it comes to getting and sticking to advice from government officials, voters seem to be confident about that.
And that will be interesting as the weeks and months unfold in front of us, as people look at what the president is saying and what the Democratic nominee for president is saying, and when the president, frankly, has all the levers of power.
That's right.
To do or not do. Amy Walter, and we will be talking to you later tonight. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.